Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl Aney.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summit.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Tony Tost. I'm a screenwriter, television producer, and you're listening to The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
So this is fantastic. You have done so many fantastic things, and I can't wait to get into it. But mostly I want to shut the fuck up because sitting next to me is another screenwriter and someone that, you know I love you.
Yes, of course.
Hilliard guest. By the way, you should check out Hilliard's show. It's called Screenwriters Rant Room. I imagine you're going to get pitched at some point. But
I'm going to have him on the show. You don't know it yet.
Yeah.
Wait until I make a fool of myself.
Right. If you guys don't know Tony's work, you've seen it headlined on Netflix before because he's one of the main dudes from Longmire. There is a long resume of things. Right. You have a lot of projects. We'll talk about those. But just super stoked to have you on. And first inaugural podcast. So, and we worked a long time coming, too. We had to be patient.
Yeah, I know. I was a little flaky life, work.
Well, being busy
all
is
that
good.
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just telling. I just had the co-EP of Flash on my show the other day, and we were trying to do it for like the last year. Mm-hmm. And I told him, he was like, "Oh man, I apologize," and I was like, "Don't apologize. It always works out at the perfect timing, regardless."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And like if you're working, I want you working. Like
make that money.
Yeah. I got the big time Danny Trejo. I've been working on Danny Trejo for a long time. Nice. And the lower I got in the PR structure, like the more like they're like, no. And so it came down to, I'm like, the one day of the week I can't do it is Tuesday at 9 a.m. And I do face-to-face. So, let me know. And everything was good until we got to she's like, Tuesday, 9 a.m., phone call, 30 minutes. And I'm like, none of that is what I do. We're going to have to pass. So I got to pass? I had to pass on Danny Trejo. Just this once.
That would be an interesting, because he's Mr. Restaurateur now.
He's really became an icon. He's successful. I love it.
Donuts and tacos. Yeah. So are you going to have Tony's Tacos?
Tony's Tacos. Tony's Taco Toast. No, I'm not.
Oh.
But it's a maybe it'd be a one-man show.
Yeah. So are you a poet? Or are you a screenwriter?
I am. I used to call myself a recovering poet.
Okay.
Which is kind of a shitty thing. For a long time, I was a poet. I kind of got the poetry bug when I was about 19. Mm-hmm. I was in community college. First, I wanted to write song lyrics. I was really into grunge, punkish stuff. Wanted to write better lyrics. And then I just kind of got into the words and stuff, and I got a little bit of a religious, almost conversion to literature around that time. Mm-hmm. I grew up, pretty blue collar. I was born in Missouri Ozarks. Grew up in a small town, kind of at the base of Mount Rainier in Washington State. Mm-hmm. So kind of trailer park to trailer park type of thing. Yeah. Nobody in my family got to college. Graduated high school. Started working at a pickle factory, realized that was maybe not what I wanted to do.
What a great story.
He could have been a deal man. See?
Yeah. So I started taking classes at community college. Took a creative writing class because, I kind of wanted to write songs like the Meat Puppets and, and stuff like that. And then I kind of discovered like Franz Kafka, got into movies, then went to this strange Christian, very right-wing college in the Ozarks called College of the Ozarks, which was like if your family was under a certain income level, you could work on campus and that would pay for your tuition. So that was really the option for me. And so I went there, and then they weirdly at that time had a great English faculty and then some other kind of Ozark art weirdos. And so I kind of discovered William Butler Yeats and Flannery O'Connor and Melville, like this whole world kind of when I was about teen or so. I had no idea that this really existed, like this world of, and so then I just kind of just devoted like the next 12 or 13 years of my life to poetry.
Really?
Applied to creative writing programs, and I got into some good ones, but I literally couldn't afford the drive to get there. And
couldn't get enough overtime shifts at the pickle factory.
Yeah, well, at this point, I was working. I was cleaning condos and working the night man at a hotel, and washing dishes and stuff in Branson, Missouri.
Yeah.
But I could afford to go down to the University of Arkansas's creative writing program, which ended up being, again, like, it worked out. That was the perfect place to go. It was a great program. So I did a 4-year MFA there. And then coming out of there, like, my master's thesis, it got published as my first book. I won the week before I graduated, I found out I won this thing called the Walt Whitman Award.
Right.
First book of poetry, so that was cool. But then I'd fallen in love right at that time with my now wife, Lee, who's from Arkansas. She was going to North Carolina for a political science PhD. I decided to tag along with her. And then, again, I was kind of working as a barista, counting traffic and stuff for the city of
I love to hear
Chapel
people's
Hill.
hustles on the way.
Yeah.
I love it.
And then she decided to switch from political science to business for a PhD, and I decided I would go back and do a PhD as well. And so we both ended up at Duke at the same time. So I wrote a dissertation on Ezra Pound mostly. His poetics. Published another poetry book, wrote a book, and published it about Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
Finished the PhD. We moved to Seattle for her postdoc, and I got a tenure track creative writing job. Walked in on my first faculty meeting and realized, oh my God, I've done some huge mistake. I do not want to be in academia anymore.
Wow.
I do not want to be in this world. What have I done?
I love it.
So I switched over to screenwriting kind of like right then.
Was that a fluke?
It was
was it in your?
It was always in my head. Like way back in the day. Like when I was in the Ozarks, I really wanted to go to film school, film nut, but I just the finance, the geography, just the otherworldliness of it. It's just like it's not for people like me. It's a nice daydream to have. I don't know the first step to take to get into that industry. Because I never knew anybody who was in it, didn't know, I didn't know any of the paths. I guess I was too chicken shit to just drive out to LA or New York and do it, because I was like, well, I want to do that, but I can do this creative writing thing, and at least, I've kind of come to think that creative writing MFA programs are a little bit of a sham, a little bit, it's a little bit of a pyramid scheme. But the nice thing about it is, like, if you're an undergraduate and you finish, you're like, well, it's not a huge step to go to grad school. Like, at least, and then, most people, they get really in debt and they realize there's no jobs and like, oh crap.
Yeah.
It is such a leap from being, poor undergraduate in a rural setting to like going to a big city. Like, I just couldn't do that. So anyways, so it was always something I wanted to do. The weird roundabout way that I did it, in a lot of ways, is luck, circumstance. When I was at University of Arkansas, one of the MFA students there is a guy named Nick Pizzolatto, who went on to do True Detective. But we were there. He was a fiction writer. I was a
It's not a
poet.
very good show, Pete. Just all kind of Emmys. It's nothing.
Nothing. Small
You probably
time.
haven't heard about it.
Right.
But we got to be buddies. And then we were both in North Carolina at the same time, and we were still pretty good friends. And his novel got optioned, and he wanted to write the script for it. But the agents who'd optioned is just like, well, you have to have some kind of script sample to be able to really do that. So he kind of went away, wrote a bunch of scripts in a short period of time, and one of them including like the True Detective pilot, but a bunch of other ones. He kind of
He was on that level at that point.
Yeah.
Wow.
He just kind of because he's obviously a very smart guy, but also
Tell us why that's wow though. That's interesting.
It usually and you can relate. It usually takes a good amount of scripts before you can write a script like True Detective. I mean, it's just so smart, so clever. It's just breaking all the barriers. It's pushing through things that we've seen today. It's on another level. It's
not just a procedural. It's not an anti-procedural. It's almost like this meta procedural where it's about the crime, but it's also about the stories we tell ourselves about about ourselves and about crime and about our place in the universe. It's just operating
character, like real. Yeah.
So anyway, so that's so he sent that to the agents and they flipped out. And he got a staff writing job at The Killing, got some pilot deals, and then he's just, because we were both at this point just kind of desperate to get out of academia for our own separate reasons. Just like, we're not good fits here. And he's just like, like the water's really nice over here. Like,
it's a nice 79, isn't it?
Write some scripts. If they don't suck, I'll give them to my agents and say that you're, a pretty sane guy, and we'll see what happens. And so I tried. I tried writing my first script, which I was going to try to do like The Wire in the Ozarks.
So were you specking scripts at the time?
I was specking, yeah. Okay. So this is just to pass along to the agent. Sure. So this is like I'm at this point I'm right at the cusp of starting this professor job, but I have a couple months kind of buffer, and it was kind of okay, and he's like, okay, I'll send it to my agents. I think this is probably good enough to get you staff, but we'll see. Right. And then I'm just like, no, don't share that yet. Like if I'm gonna put myself out there, it's gotta be something I feel like 100% on. Right. So I scrapped that, went back and wrote a pilot that never been produced, but it's called Tangle Eye. It was kind of to do a Clint Eastwood kind of Man with No Name kind of spaghetti western, but in the rural county that I grew up in, which abutted a Indian reservation, the Muckleshoot Indian reservation. And so I kind of like just wrote that in like a week and a half, and I showed
it was in you already.
It was in me.
Yeah,
it was in
definitely.
me. It tapped it. It was before I was kind of on the outside, kind of trying to write, approximating what I was seeing on TV. This time I decided like, okay, like I got more of myself into it. Some of my issues. It was set in the terrain I grew up with. Lots of people and so it had life to it. I showed it to my wife, and she's like, yeah, like this is. You should send this. This is like.
And I want to read that one.
Yeah, no kidding.
So he sent that to his agents. They loved it. They became my agents, and I was living in Seattle at the time. And then it was weird because like it was very good fortune. They passed it around the industry a little bit. A manager who's still my manager, Guyman Cassidy at Management 360, who's
one of the top companies around town.
He liked it a lot, so he wanted to work with me. They set up a bunch of meetings, and so I flew in for like a week and a half of meetings, and it was crazy. So I was meeting with executives, production companies, what have you, and then by the time I flew, I came home and I got the Longmire job. Out of those meetings, I had weirdly like pitched and sold a pilot to a studio, and then the Tangle Eye, the spec, got a pilot deal with a blind script deal at another.
By the way, Pete,
studio.
None of this ever happens.
Right.
And so like
there's always some dude out of town who gets the shit.
So that was just insanely. So like I came back home and quit the professor job. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm a screenwriter now. And
but wait, press pause there because, yeah, like you're saying, that's impossible. So how did you know the language of screenwriting? I mean, okay, you're a poet, you're a PhD, you know writing, but
I know. I mean, I was. Like as a teenager, I was obsessed with Quentin Tarantino. I read all of his scripts. I would read scripts. Like actually, when I was like some of the poetry that I would do, I was a pretty, I guess, kind of experimental poet. Like sometimes I would write poems in the form of screenplays. You know, and so I liked that form a lot because it's so imagistic and as a way to get outside of some typical poetic. I don't know, kind of typical poetic moves is to like, bring that sensibility. So like I kind of knew the form, but also I think weirdly poetry and screenwriting maybe in a way match up even better than
didn't I just tell you
novel
that?
Writing.
I just told him this literally about 10 minutes before you came in.
Yeah.
That I was writing spoken word before I ever started writing screenplays, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I totally understand. I will say one little thing.
Yeah.
Everybody that I know, everybody who's successful, wrote a script that everybody told them not to write.
Yeah.
Or that they wrote from their gut.
Oh, 100%.
And that's the script they made. Every single person.
Every single person. My entire what I have, like my my kind of anonymous working career is built on 3 scripts, all on spec, all just my things written. Like, you know, like I've done other stuff for money, for on assignment and stuff, and that's paid the bills, and that's been rewarding. But my entire it's the only things that ever get brought up in meetings, or the reason people want to meet with me or possibly work with me, is these small little.
And sometimes you never sell them, but they are just your
They
calling
can be
card.
your best friends, because like, it's your chance. Like, if you don't have to develop with somebody, it could be your voice, for better or worse. But it's your voice, it's your obsessions, your passion. Yeah, it might not get produced, but people then know, oh, that's who this person is.
Right.
And that was, I kind of lucked into that. I mean, that wasn't that I kind of didn't know any better at the beginning, but then I kind of had to relearn it, because I thought I was gonna be cagey and like, you can't outsmart the industry.
No.
You can't anticipate where things are going. You've kind of like, you've got to kind of, you know, hope that the stars align, that what you're passionate about, you know, and I have friends like breaking in or trying to break in, and it's just like, if you have 100 people who think your script is pretty good, nothing's going to happen. If you have 2 or 3 people think like, this is the best thing I've read all year, something might happen.
Right.
You know, like, that's the difference. And you have to, you know, and maybe 96 people think, oh, well, fuck, I'm sorry about the cussing.
Oh, please.
You should say fuck all you want.
Okay, good.
We're grown folks over here.
Okay, good. Never know. But yeah, so I mean, even if like 50, 80, 90 people hate it, if those 3 people think that's the best thing they read all year, they will, you know, because what you need is, you need somebody either to think, this script is rocket fuel for my career,
Right.
or this thing I believe in so much I will risk my rep or actual finances to get this thing made. And like, pretty professional or pretty good or good enough isn't going to do that. And so I think it's I think that, like, I'm not talented or smart enough to write that kind of script if it's not an obsession or personal or very. The whole thing was just, I lucked into. So we were talking about the connection between poetry and script writing, and yeah, so like learning the form, like, to me, like, well, it's different spoken word, which also probably has.
But I always did mine, and I was telling, it was always in a story form.
Okay, yeah.
I always told a story. I didn't even realize. I
Yeah.
just went back like 6 months ago. I had a big pitch meeting at this big company, and there was an element of poetry in there. So in my pitch, I did this fucking full-on spoken word. It was beautiful. But I had went back and looked at some of my old stuff and went, oh my God, I'm telling. I was completely one act three. You know, had everything in there. So
No, that's so because I mean and the cool thing about this, because like my stuff was very much not spoken word, is very kind of imagistic, which was good because I think they can lend themselves to screenwriting, because like for me, what it is, poetry was trying to create a certain kind of emotional state or psychic state in a reader through a series of images and the juxtaposition of images. And in a lot of ways, screenwriting is that. If you can, you know, like the best scripts have this little, I think sometimes, and this could be my own like loving of like westerns or samurai films where there's not a lot of dialogue, but it's like the very exact selection of images in a certain order, in a certain juxtaposition, create an emotional state.
And it's clean on the page. It's just beautiful too.
Yeah, but the hardest thing for me actually was, and this connects with your spoken word experience, was like I had always written for a kind of a silent voice, like, you know, like not reading out loud, not, you know, but to kind of read and take in. But while you're writing, and this is the thing, one of the big jumps I had to take, plus like learning narrative, was to learn how to write for the spoken voice, so like it doesn't sound like writing. It sounds like people, you know, like composing at the point of utterance, which is also called talking. You know, but it's,
and it should be a little poetic.
It should be poetic, but it shouldn't be overdetermined.
Correct.
You know, and so like so then I had to just learn. Okay, like my process has to be, I write shit, and then I say it out loud a lot, and then if it sounds weird, it sounds like a speech instead of somebody's talking. Well, then I need to go back in there and mess with the rhythms and all that kind of stuff.
Do you act when you do that? Especially like Longmire, you've got established characters. Are you like, I'm Ranch?
No, I kind of swagger around. Play dress up.
Right.
Now
he's got his cowboy boots on.
Speak Philadelphia to me. That's the line I heard today.
Now I'm going to be Vic. Katie would slap me if I was doing her voice like that. I don't really get in the character so much. I mean, it's easier like later seasons of Longmire because the actors had such specific voices, I could hear it. I'd say it out loud.
You could write them in like a day or two.
And I could, like, and I would do like, Robert Taylor is Walt Longmire, like a little bit deeper, and, like make sure that it sounds, that sounds right. But I think it's just kind of literally like saying it out loud and hearing it. Rhythms. And just rhythms, feeling that it doesn't go on too long. Like I would write too many compound sentences.
That was my next question.
Especially coming out of academia into screenwriting. Like folks usually don't talk like that. They have little pauses in there, or they're
staccato almost.
Yeah, a lot of times, and so like that's the thing, figuring out that rhythm, and then but once you know the actors' voices, it becomes so much easier, and you can write towards that. Like Lou Diamond Phillips has a very specific way of speaking, and
I had this question teed up. Okay, so I love Longmire; it's fantastic, and I got obsessed with Lou Diamond Phillips' character, and I didn't know if this is something that you did, something he did, or something that I completely imagined. But to me, he's like Data.
Yeah.
Never used contractions. Right. The way he spoke. Yeah. Am I crazy?
Not crazy at all. One contraction a season.
Okay.
Really?
One contraction a season. Yeah. But that was derived from Craig Johnson's novels. Of his Henry Standing Bear in Craig Johnson's iteration of him in the novels did not. And I think part of the idea was that he would, he's a very careful, very exact in his words, but also like he would speak the white man's language with more precision and exactness than the white man himself in a way. It's a way of almost kind of a character who's been, in an early age, probably, in a way against his will, indoctrinated in a non-native language. And so you can either kind of take a victim mentality of that, or you can say, I'll turn that to my advantage, and I'll take your language and I will use it with more acumen than you're capable of. And so I think that's
taking the power away from them.
A lot of ways. Kind of taking that back. And so that was it. Sometimes, I mean, like we would have to go through a lot, because like you want it to be like, wait, I think Henry talks like that. Is that true, or is that just me? Because like you don't want it to be so overt that it becomes comical, or it becomes exaggerated and stuff. So it's that fine line, and it's tricky sometimes. And like it would take several passes to kind of get it where at least we felt like it was both specific to Henry, but it also felt like a person and not contrived persona.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I've been dying to ask that question forever. So,
but see, that's in developing your characters and making them. You give them that voice, and you start to start to hear it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I think there's a kind of a truism that's pretty freaking true, that like a really well written script, you cover the characters' names and you know who's speaking, because they have specific voices, they have a specific point of view, they have mannerisms, they have their own language. That was a lot of me learning. Like I jumped in season 1 writing for Longmire. I had basically written one script up to that point. You know?
One of them happened to be someone who lives right next to someone on an Indian reservation, which is
I'm still tripping off the fact that your spec just so happened to fit right. It's timing, though. It's timing.
Wow.
Timing. I mean, it's very lucky. I mean, it's like, because like they're, like it's set in Wyoming. I grew up in Washington State. Pretty similar landscape, pretty similar demographics. Set next to the Cheyenne Reservation. I grew up next to the Muckleshoot Reservation. So there's and I just happened to, in trying to write what I knew or what I was passionate about, I wanted to claim that landscape, and that happened to be what they're looking for. I mean, but there's also other things, like there was 2 other writers that would have gotten my position, but they got other jobs, and so I was choice number 3.
Wow.
You know? And so like, I mean, there's just that of it too. It's not like I came in Mr. Unicorn and must hire. It's just like, okay, plan A fell through, plan B fell through. Let's try this poet weirdo from out of town as plan C. He'll be cheap at least, you know? But so then it's like me jumping in.
That's like Judge Harry from Night Court. He was like, I was the 47th guy they called on a Sunday. I was just home.
Oh, Harry Anderson was?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But I mean, like, that's the story of the judge.
Yeah.
You know, not Harry himself.
Okay. That's funny. But so I mean, like, first season was actually like me just jumping in and trying to fake it.
Yeah.
And just trying to survive. Just trying to like.
Were you vocal in the room? Were you quiet, or did it take you a minute to figure that out?
I was very like, I'm the writers' rooms, because I'd spent, the Arkansas MFA program is a 4-year workshop-heavy program. So the writers' room felt like a less dysfunctional, more friendly writers' workshop.
Oh, interesting.
And so I felt right at home. Like
Okay,
probably too at home.
You
being
feet up, chilling.
Yeah,
huh?
exactly. No, showrunner, let me tell you what the story should be. Yeah. I mean, but, and so I can be pretty chatty in the writers' room.
Okay.
So, but the Longmire writers' room, I mean, they're saints. Greer Shepherd, she's my really my mentor person, who hired me, kind of mentored me, kind of taught me both television writing and television producing, along with John Coveney and Hunt Baldwin, who are the creators of it.
Right.
They really, their writers' room was very untraditional. It was the three of them. Greer's a non-writing showrunner. She really guides the ship. And then Hunt and John are a writing team who are the head writers, also executive producers, creators of it. And then there's only one other writer in the room at a time. Just per episode, because especially the first season or two is very much of a procedural engine.
Oh, okay.
So you come in, break your episode for 2 weeks, go off, outline it, do notes, do all that process, then you come back again for your episode.
Oh, so you guys aren't just in the room every day like you guys are.
So maybe like at the start of the season, the whole writer team and really was just myself and 2 other like staff writers.
Okay.
Would be in for we'd kind of brainstorm for the season, or mostly download from Greer and Hunt and John what the season was going to be about. We'd make some pitches,
Sure.
and then you just come in for your episode. And so like that, as the show got more serialized, that presented some problems and stuff. But also as the show got more serialized, like seasons, especially like seasons 4 and 5 when we got to Netflix. At this point, I'm a producer. I've gone from freelance in the first season or so to like being more involved. So I'm in more of these discussions of what's going on. I'm prepping episodes and doing all that stuff. And so like
where did you guys shoot, by the way?
New Mexico.
Okay.
And gorgeous.
Oh, it's
my
man,
It's
God.
awesome.
dude.
Yeah. So like the northern part of New Mexico, we'd stay in Santa Fe. That's where the production offices are, where our stages were, and then usually we'd kind of wander north a bit to find the different locations.
Right.
It was on on Deadly Class. How many?
Vancouver.
Vancouver.
Yeah, they're shooting my episode right now.
Oh, really?
Which I'm a little annoyed because
Oh,
I thought I was going to go shoot my episode.
Yeah. Well,
Bastard.
no, I mean that's.
I said it.
Yeah, I didn't make it on set until my second season on Longmire. It's tricky. I mean,
that was our whole
Did you ever
thing for
get in a
getting
scene
me.
at all? I mean, you look like you could be in Longmire right now, just sitting your day-to-day Tony self. Like I'm Jeff the bartender.
Yeah, no, I did show up in. Originally because I'm a big pro wrestling fan. And I wrote like some backyard wrestling in an episode.
That's
I was gonna be the ref.
All right.
We even had a shirt for me and stuff. But then I had to go back to LA for something, so I didn't make that episode.
Yeah.
And then a later episode that season, I was a cowboy who had to go pee.
Yeah.
And then I walk in the scene, and Cassidy Freeman, who plays Katie, grabs me and shoves me out of the bathroom. And so like that was my
Fantastic.
my acting.
That's cute.
Yeah.
He got his SAG cards. He ended up
Yeah. So anyway, so that's but yeah, so like I mean is crazy. And then like learning how to, I don't know, like a Deadly Class, do you know like how many days you guys shoot for an
I
episode?
think they do. Some are 7, some are 9. Depends.
Yeah. So like Longmire is 7 days per episode,
Right.
and which is like only 2 of them on stage. So like this crew was amazing because like we'd be at maybe like 3 locations a day, and so that means like you run out, you hit the scene, the actors got to nail it right away. They got to get it, and then everybody jumps in the trucks and drives to the next scene, and everything's
Which
set
is
up.
a nightmare.
I can't even
on
imagine.
most other shows,
Most shows you can maybe do one
right.
move.
You do not want to move.
Yeah.
Move
No,
is
you
the
try
worst thing to do.
Yeah, you try to set it.
Right.
Try to set it up so you can spend the whole day. in
Well,
one
anything
location.
can happen once everything's broke down and you're en route. Like someone could break their ankle.
Exactly.
Anything.
Yeah, everything, or then you fall behind
Right.
on the first scene, and then like you got to catch it up somewhere.
That's
so
why
you,
they all
Right.
drive together. Because if somebody's like, "Oh, I'm gonna drive," you're like, "Oh
Yeah.
shit."
Yeah.
yeah, forget lots. So anyway, so like that was there's many reasons why Longmire was a lucky break, but like the amazing people to work with, really cool cast. I love the show. It was it was a great entry point too, because like
Right.
I think one of the big reasons that they
How many did you guys do a season? How many?
did 10 episodes a season, except for season 2 when we did 13.
Okay, right.
Which was like doesn't sound like a lot, but that almost
it's a big jump
us.
from 10. It's
especially
a big
with
jump
that small of
from 10.
writers room.
Right,
Like
right.
it was my second season. I wrote 4 episodes.
Wow.
In that season, and it was like just quit. Like you'd be working on 2 episodes at the same time, and you've got like 24 hours to write 30 pages of decent scenes like that. You're just but
Nice green envelopes, though. Trust me.
but no, totally. They told me like one of the main reasons they hired me was just because I'm from that world. Because they needed, like most writers, like a lot of them come from an Ivy League or from a little bit more sheltered kind of world. And I grew up in small towns in the West.
Trailer park. I mean,
and I love like we had a whole couple, like the trailer park that we had in Longmire where Vic ended up, like I modeled that on the one of the trailer parks that I grew up in. And so like actually like a lot of the characters that populated that trailer park are all just based on people I know.
Yeah.
And so like it was just like my own little like Tony's little petri dish in a way of like, it's like there's an older lady that like my grandma who I was very close to had passed like 2 years before. And so I basically invented a character with her name that had all of her traits basically, and then like we cast an actress that was just like I was on set almost in tears the whole time because like she was uncannily like my grandma.
Wow.
So trying to get a brother teary on.
And so like so that's the cool thing. Like and again like and then the great thing then when you do that, like it's nice, indulgent for personal reasons that you have a connection, you can heal little things, but it gives a specificity to storytelling that nothing else. Like if you're just doing the genre greatest hits, you can't really have that specificity that that you can even on whatever modest scale. I mean, like it doesn't. But if something's very specific and true, like it helps the performers because it has an inner integrity.
Yeah.
I think it helps the storytelling. It helps. It can make things a little bit more alive. So it's like, oh, I've seen that scene before. I have seen that scene before.
What's the difference between authenticity and on the nose? Because on the nose is bad.
Oh yeah.
But authenticity.
Well,
is good.
I mean, that's a great question. On the nose is something that I think.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business, or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
What's the difference between authenticity and on the nose? Because on the nose is bad.
Oh yeah.
But authenticity.
Well,
is good.
I mean, that's a great question. On the nose is something that I think.
Too familiar is the first thing that always comes to me.
It's too familiar and broadcasts too directly its intentions.
Right.
In a way. So like somebody's feeling sad and they walk outside and it starts raining. Like it's
especially
just like,
procedural. You see it in procedurals.
Yeah. So it's like it's on the nose. It's too. There's no. There's something. Authentic has an inner integrity.
Okay.
To it, I think, or has an unexpectedness that doesn't feel trivial. It feels right in a way. While like I think things that are on the nose are like they do nothing other than it's almost rhetorical. It broadcasts this is how you should interpret this moment, as opposed to kind of letting the emotion or the intent kind of be
organic.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you guys did a lot of this in Longmire with the different characters and their struggles with alcohol or all the different. They were all fighting something. It seemed like and. You could definitely be like right on the nose. I can't remember all the characters' names, but the guy that was maybe going to have a baby with Vic.
Yeah.
Like he was, he became something. It's like we introduced this guy, and you could have made him on the nose like he's going to be this, but he wasn't. He was much more complex than that.
Yeah. No, I think Travis is the
Travis,
character.
right? Yeah.
And part of that is just like, well, we had a fantastic actor, Derek Phillips from Friday Night Lights, in that role. But it's also like, that was one of my favorite characters to write because he gets, he kind of got introduced, like he was originally just going to be a one-off character. Like he's like Branch's old football buddy who's now, or his old, maybe football, and he also has been in rodeo, but he's struggling and stuff. And he's a little bit a dick, and then but then we're just like, well, we happen to cast a great actor there. He's in this world, and then he just we kept on trying to find reasons to bring that really that actor back in a lot of ways. And so then you're just like, well, if he comes back to the same one note, that's gonna be boring. And so how can we kind of find, something that doesn't contradict what came before, but where's the humanity in this guy? What's gonna be unexpected? What's gonna be the thing that we're not expecting to see from him, but isn't arbitrary or random, but it's just like, okay, like this is a guy who's like, he's got an overprotective mom. He's been, he's been kind of disappointed with himself in his life, and he's looking, but he's seeing this pregnancy, and with Vic, even though it was just a one-night stand, maybe this is a chance for him to finally step up and be a man. And so he wants to make that leap, but she's not so sure about it. And so like you get that, and then it's like, oh, well, that's relatable. I've been in this moment where I'm kind of like, oh, I'm kind of being a fuck up, and some X happens, and like I either gotta raise my game up, or I'm gonna continue being a fuck up and disappoint people. And so you can bring a little bit of that to it. And so like that's the I think that's you gotta have a little bit of like emotional skin in the game on probably as many characters as you can. Some aspect of yourself is there, or something you fear about yourself, or something you want to be, or whatever the case is.
And we were tapping into that earlier about how you have to be, if you ever feel like you're for instance, he's writing some really cool military things right now, for example. So I was telling him, I was like, now I realize when it comes to the military, there's lots of things you can't, because he comes from them, there's things you can't say. But you have to come right up to the line. So that we feel the authenticity of it. But it also is real and true to the people who are in there. So they don't feel like, oh, you exposed something, but oh man, that's really what happens. You know what I mean? So anytime you hold back because you're worried about it is when you're not being authentic. But if you could take it to the line, then you're doing okay.
No, totally. And that's sometimes when you're writing a story where you have characters kind of inspired by real life people, but you can't really like use them, but you want to have that specificity or something unique to them without them saying, wait, that's me, I'm gonna sue you. Which is not, but it's that, but also like if you don't bring something of the real world to it, and I mean that's the thing, you can tell like movies or scripts written by people who've only they're just quotes of other movies. I think that was like, sometimes I think about like, what if I would have started this career coming out of college instead of going down these other things? But I'm just like, well, then I would have just been like every other
needed that experience.
Person. Like I wouldn't have had a point of view. Wouldn't have had a wide, weird range of experiences. And also like, being a poet, nobody gives a shit. So you've got to, like, the writing itself has to be its own reward, because it sure as hell it's not the money. It's not social status, and like maybe once you're past 25, chicks aren't impressed anymore either, or whoever you're wanting to impress. It becomes a little sad maybe to them. And so it's got to be the actual writing that sustains you. And so like the great thing then is like, you develop a relationship to writing and to your own inner voice and to your own kind of inner censor. And then if you get a couple lucky breaks and you're writing now for a month, like the thing is like I still like I write, I write, working on a show now, work on other things, but I'm also always writing my own things, just because I have.
How in the world do you find time when you're executive producing a freaking show? Or do you just try to squeeze it in?
When I had my own show on Damnation, which I was show running, I couldn't do anything else.
I understand.
All I could do was, because like, there's the writer's room, there's the scripts, there's prep, there's filming, and there's post, and they're all going on at the same time. Like you're literally working on 8 episodes at the same time.
So they're finally about to air?
It's going to. So it aired on USA last November through January. Got canceled.
Right. That's what I knew. It was something. It was a twist.
That's the Act 5 surprise. Always a delight. And then, but it's going to be airing. It's going to. Now that the when your window is up, it will now be have its afterlife on Netflix starting November 7th, which I'm excited about. So like now people who didn't catch it on USA, now it's just, because it was a co-production with Netflix, is internationally on Netflix already, but it'll be available on the US. And so many people find things on streaming, stuff they didn't catch the first time. And so like I'm excited. Like now it gets to have a second life.
Tell the people what Damnation's about.
Damnation is, so it's set in the 1930s. The way I always discuss it is like it's 1/3 a Clint Eastwood Western, 1/3 John Steinbeck novel, 1/3 a James Ellroy paranoid thriller type of thing. So
Fantastic.
And so either you like that thing or you fall asleep. But so basically it's set in the middle of Iowa. There's two men. One is a guy with a violent past named Seth Davenport, who's posing as a preacher, and he's essentially trying to create class warfare and create basically a second civil war in the middle of the heartland. Lots of this is inspired by true events going on in Iowa at the time. Then there's a second man named
going on.
Yeah, no, hasn't all quite been worked out yet. Then there's a second man named Creeley Turner who works for the Pinkerton Detective Agency, which you may know from the Old West days, but in the 30s was basically doing strike breaking for hire. They go in and beat the shit out of organized labor and stuff. He's been sent to Iowa to stop this man. And what people don't know is that these two share a bloody past. And so it's very much like, okay, it's a battle for the heart and soul of the country in the middle of farm country. Prohibition is going on, so there's all that kind of stuff going on. And then we find out what's these two guys' story, how are they related to each other, and what their past is, and how things are going to work out.
Here's something interesting. I know I'm talking a lot, but forgive me.
Yeah. I don't want to talk at all.
This is fascinating to me. They always tell you a couple things never to write. Anything historic and anything Western.
Yeah.
And you know how to mix the both of them.
Yeah,
which is really interesting.
And we probably why we got canceled after one. No, I mean, I had this idea for it, and I was having breakfast with my agent, and we were sitting there, and it's like, yeah, Jill, I've got this awesome idea for a TV show, like, I think it's set in 1930s farming community.
He's at 19 what?
1930s farming community. It's got real themes about labor and class, and I think maybe we could do it in black and white. And she does an actual spit take, and she's just like, just so you know, Tony, like that's the least commercially promising idea I've ever heard.
Wow. Yeah.
So like you can't pitch that.
Right.
But if you really believe in it,
it's tortilla flat meets Howard Zinn meets
exactly.
So like if you can get it on the page, maybe we could tell it. Right?
It's one, but and so she's just like, but if you write it and it's entertaining and it's interesting and stuff, I'll try to sell it.
Yeah,
if
I like
you really
her.
believe it. Yeah,
that's good.
It's awesome. Yeah. And so I'm just like, okay, I'll, and so this is why I'm working on Longmire. It's my passion project thing, and so I wrote a couple episodes, and then we got a director involved, and got other people, and so then we went out and sold it, and somehow got it made. I mean, you could write a mini novel about the struggle about getting a pilot, especially from someone who's pretty anonymous, to marshal these forces, these kind of financial, try to get the financial headwind and get people on board, get people excited, because like it's especially to do period, like that's a lot of fucking money.
Very hard. I wrote the Black Wall Street movie.
Oh yeah,
and it's about the 1920s, and there's a lot of
in Tulsa.
Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yeah. It's been fascinating. So now I'm starting to get all these like opportunities to write all these other scripts around that. They were like, oh, he's the guy who's. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, dude, I'm more than that. I'm more than.
Yeah, but I found I was kind of. That's interesting because I'm only now starting to try to one thing I did catch on early was that my biography was a little bit different, right? And it dovetailed nicely with that first script. And then I did Longmire, and then so I became, for those who were interested, this is the white trash crime.
This is Hollywood,
guy.
Dude. They will literally put you in that thing. Man.
And so I was like, okay, I like crime stuff. I like white trash stuff. I'll be that guy.
Embrace it.
Yeah.
All the way to the thing.
So I will make sure that they know that element of my biography, that, you know, so they get that, because, like, you know, they're cloistered away. They want to feel authenticity come in through the door. So you have an interesting, you know, if you're trying to break in and you have an untraditional background, like, embrace it. And if there's a story you want to tell in that, all the better, because that confuse and then they know what to picture you. If they don't want to do that thing, if they have something kind of like that, which is, you know, that they want somebody for, where they can say, no, this person's the real deal. This person grew up in this world. This person knows it inside and out. Be that person. Like, you know, like, give them it's not, you don't just have to be,
it is your superpower.
Good.
Yeah.
You know, really,
no, absolutely.
I was telling Pete, I believe we talked about this on your show a few months ago. There was an incident that happened. I was in the room, and I wonder if you can relate to this at all.
Okay.
Especially, like, this is my first time on, like, a network show. I've been in many smaller rooms, right? I'm sitting in a room, and two of the older writers are philosophizing about philosophy. It's not my shit, right? Yeah. And I find myself sitting there, and I start shrinking in the room, and I was getting imposter syndrome. Yeah. I literally was sitting there going, "What the fuck am I doing here?" Yeah. And I looked down at the table, and open on the table is our, you know, big book with all the comics in there. Yeah. And it's open on a page of this character that represents me. It's a guy named Maud Steven. And I looked down at him, and I looked around the table at all the writers, and I went, oh, nobody else was there except for me. Yeah. In San Francisco. Yeah. In the 80s. Yeah. I was at Bad Brains. I was at Fishbone. I was at, you know what I mean? Yeah. I was at the special. That was me. Yeah. And I went, oh, okay, they can do whatever. When it comes to that, I got it. Yeah. You know? But it took me, for 5 minutes, I was just like, what am I doing here? Yeah. And immediately I came out of that with even more power. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And I think, absolutely, I mean, I went through that as well. And then so much, and weirdly, like, owning that insecurity or to find something from you're just like, okay, like, I'm being excluded because of my background or because I'm not in this club. Right. But like, almost like your purchase on the story or on your place in there is that exclusion in a way, and bringing the thing, not in a shitty way, but bringing the thing that other people can't, which is like experience, which is firsthand, not just like firsthand observation, but also like the emotional path of being in that world or being this type of person in that world. Like, you know, like I grew up in this kind of blue collar, rural, tougher world. I'm not a tough guy. You know, I probably got born into the wrong world. I should have, you know, I'm happy in a library watching films. I'm a cream puff type of guy, you know. But I happen to grow up in this world, so I observed that. And also I had to figure out coping strategies to be like somebody in that world, not of that world. So I can talk about that a little bit and talk, you know. And so it's like, if you can locate,
you're kind of an underdog. I love that.
Like, if you can locate your insecurities and kind of own them in a way, and like, I always feel like whatever I'm insecure about, if I can share it and vocalize it, like, it's a lot less scary. But it also it's a thing that's very specific to you, like the things that, and that if you can write about the things you're actually afraid about, or tell stories, and being honest about that, like that's because so many people aren't. They want to be like, and again, this is like, you know, friends of mine that you know, their weakest scripts, they're trying to be smarter than the story, or they're hovering, or they're outside it. They're like bird's eye view. They're never down the characters. You never feel them put their own emotional or psychological state at risk. Like, you know, you need to, like, almost feel like this script might just show too much of me, of what I'm afraid of, or what my, you know. And if you can be in that state, or at least access it, because like, you can't be in it all the time, because you'll just, you know, melt. But if you can access it either in a room or on the page, that does become your superpower. That becomes that thing, how to cultivate that, maintain access of it while still being a functioning human being. Like, I think that's sometimes the artist's kind of that's the thing that you have to kind of learn among the things you have to master, I think.
So I worked a lot in conflict zones, Afghanistan, that kind of thing, and I would go out into town and do a very similar thing where I would be, it's not discomfort, it's miscomfort. Like, I had to figure out what comfortable was in that Afghan world. I'm not from that world, but I was in it. And then my job was to extract out what the reality was and condense it down into a consumable package to the military. So I had to, like, hop into it.
And he studied human behavior all day long. You had to.
Yeah. And but I had to translate. This is where I want to get to. I had to translate what I saw and experienced to a totally different audience that couldn't accept. Like, no, there's no electricity here.
Yeah.
And they're like, my light just went on. There's not even electricity. We have to completely change our dynamic. But if I just came back and said, everything sucks, dig more wells, they would have said, yeah, dig more wells. But that wasn't about that. So I had to go into this reality, experience the miscomfort, understood, and bring that message out. That's almost the same thing that you're trying to do for your audience, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. 'Cause, you have to, like, not just document facts. You have to like internalize the world, almost like I guess like the operational perspective that these facts conjure or create, and then take that and somehow translate this to people somewhere else so they can understand it, so they can make, because like so they can adapt and understand that from the inside out, and like that's a big thing about, like, when you're telling a story, like you want a script to be an emotion or an empathy generating machine, but
it should be a ride. It should be like a
but it has to start with them able to put themselves in that person's place and to read situations from their point of view, so that like if at the beginning of the movie or the script, you do that, and then at the very last scene, they see a window with a rubber ducky in it, and they start crying, and you start crying.
Right.
Like, like that first scene, that would never mean anything.
You have to set that up.
You have to set that up, and that's how you keep from being on the nose, because if it's just up there and it's somebody hanging from a noose, like, well, you could have done that in the first scene. That's nothing specific. But if you built up, it's like TSA, it's objective correlative. Like, this means this means that, in this arrangement. And then you see something that would seem arbitrary, but at the end, it's like, oh no, the ducks and the rubber duckies in the window. Oh my God, and then you've done something. Then you've created something very specific, and you've transported somebody from their own point of view.
That's like the Rosebud moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Let me just ask you, since we're here, and I know we got to wrap up.
Yeah.
Since we're sitting here in your office in the writer's room with Tara, how did you come to that show?
Well, So, Damnation got canceled. I needed a job. But I mean, I was doing, like the nice. I mean, so it's not that mercenary. It's like
because they're two different shows.
And this is a new genre for me. So, like, Terror's elevated. So it's an anthology show. The first season, 1850s, like a Arctic explorers get stranded, and then they get kind of it becomes like,
and it's a big cast,
big cast, and it's like like The Thing meets Master and Commander. It's like, it's a very cool show.
Yeah,
our season's totally different. It's totally new story.
This is really wild, because in our house we watched it, and it just ate it up, because it's a thriller, and you don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going to happen.
So the next season is not in the 1800s?
Totally new stories. No, totally new story, following a Japanese American community from a fishing village through through World War II, through an internment camp, into the war into the Pacific and back into America.
I'm so on that.
So and there's like this otherworldly specter that's involved, and that is haunting different people, and you've got to kind of figure out this whole story. So there's, but yeah, so like, I mean, it's one of those roundabout things. Like, Damnation had originally sold to AMC, actually.
Oh, really?
And then they passed on it because it's between us and Preacher. You can't have two violent Preacher shows on the same network. And then when they passed on us, we went to USA. But I had a really good time developing the show with AMC. I liked the executives; they seemed to like me. And so after Damnation ended, it was like, met with them, like, well, we'd still love to do something with you. And then the Terror, Alexander Wu is the showrunner, co-creator. And when he's looking to fill out the room, I think both AMC and then Guy McCassidy, who's my manager, is also an executive producer on the show. And so there's like, well, maybe you should take a look at Tony. He might be a good match. And so they sent me the script. I loved Alex's script for it, and it was like, I love doing historical stuff. I love doing period stuff. It's hard to get it on air. This is already on air. It's a chance to kind of do it again. And I like the story, and it's different from what I'd done before. And so I met with Alex, and I didn't scare him off. And so so we've been doing this now for like about 4 months.
Wow.
Of kind of, because it's an ambitious story. I mean, it covers Pearl Harbor happens in the first episode. And,
wow,
and,
really?
Yeah, I mean we don't film Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
But it happens.
It's in the backdrop.
Yeah.
How do you guys deal with the leap though? Like, so we're going to go from this British ship, a bunch of UK actors.
You just go. It's an anthology.
Just do it?
Yeah.
Just anthology.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like True Detective.
Right.
Fargo,
Okay.
What have you. And so so there's no
American Horror Story. You just go.
Yeah,
Right.
like so the real continuity is just in success. I think the show would every season have be kind of elevated horror, and instead of just period horror, it's historical. So it's built around some actual true life events, but there's a kind of a horror spin on it.
I didn't even realize this was an anthology.
Yeah. So we'll
See, now I got to come on season 3. I'm going to talk to you.
Yeah, totally. And so we fall, and it follows like 5 years. Like so it takes in like so much historical scope, and like this is really the first time this has been tackled in this depth on TV. So we want to get this history right, but you want to tell a gripping horror story, and that is rewarding. And telling a horror story, serious horror story over 10 hours is very different than an hour and a half, because like usually it's a house or some containment, and stuff like this is there's some sprawl and there's some, I mean, we're getting there, but it's a real like you pull one string or you take one thing out and other like it's calibrating the historical and the horror and the character developments. I mean, hopefully those are all interwoven, and we're working on that. But it's a
where are you?
Challenge.
Can you say where you are in the script right now? Are you in?
Well,
you guys still in outline form? Or are you?
We're in script. We're in script on most of the episodes. We have drafts done.
Which number are you?
I'm 2 and co-writing 7.
That is one of the hardest scripts to write. Is number 2.
2 is tough. 2 is tough.
That's tough.
Why is 2 tough?
Tell them why. Tell them why. I'll tell them why.
Well, 1, you're introducing all the characters. You're introducing the world, but 2 is almost in a way you're reintroducing the dynamics from 1, but you're moving the story forward. Also, as a 1 has it's like almost like the first album, second album thing. Like first, the pilot's really been thought through. The character's been thought through. It's written.
They've had a lot of time.
Time. Yeah, sure.
And so then you come in. I come in from the outside. Like this pilot had been developed. Yeah, I don't know how long I was involved until after it got the green light, but you come in and you try to like bring in their voice. You try to learn their voice, these characters' voices, the showrunner's voice, while bringing your own element to it and while pushing the story forward. It's a tricky thing. It's the because things need to be escalating, but they can't be escalating so much that you lose people. Like it's a like episode 2 on Damnation. Even though I wrote the first 3 episodes, 2 is the trickiest.
It's also if you don't mind me interrupting, I think it also tends to be that you come into the room. So you've written the pilot, you bring the room in, everybody comes in, and then you work for like a month or 2 just developing like what the whole series could be, even though you have ideas. Yeah. But it changes with all these people in the room. So now you got to write that episode 2 to the pilot that is kind of different now.
Yeah.
To some extent. You know what I mean?
And in a lot of ways, pilots, I mean, if you're smart about it, you're writing a pilot thinking about episode 50, episode 75, and you're writing the pilot just so the thing can exist.
Yeah.
So you throw it, like in the pilot, you throw everything you can, like this, what if we have this plot twist and stuff. Then episode 2 is when the, everything comes home to roost.
Yeah.
Where you actually have to like, oh shit, like, now, like Damnation, like the twist in the last scene is that the 2 guys are brothers.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And like part of that was just like, okay, like I think that was part of the conception, but I throw that in and like people are going to be, okay, great, what's going to happen with them as brothers? And then like, oh God, we got greenlit. What is their life together as brothers?
Right.
Or like,
it was cute on the page.
It's on the page and it's great in the pilot. And it's just like, oh yeah, it suggests all these rich things, and then you actually have to like follow through on it on 2 while still laying groundwork for 3, 4, 5. So it's like for me on 2, like it's been trying to move on the terror, like the script from being basically laying the groundwork for future episodes to being in and of itself a compelling hour of television. Because you have this whole plan, and this I see a lot of people have this problem. Like you have this whole plan for the whole season where everything climaxes in 10, but if people aren't hooked by the end of 1 or in the middle of 2, like who cares? Like you could have the most amazing Sopranos thing on 10. If everybody's tuned out, what was that? So you gotta like get that right balance. But if you like shoot the story juice in two, then you can't shoot too much of it, just because then you have nowhere to go. You know, so it's a tricky little.
It is tricky. You're right, because we binge watched that new Julia Roberts Amazon show.
Homecoming, yeah.
And we just barely got over the hump.
Oh yeah,
just barely.
It's a little slow paced.
Which episode got you pulled in?
I think we didn't have a whole lot to do.
Yeah.
If we had something else to do, we might have. But we were like, the whole 15 seconds later it starts. You're like, let's just see what happens. But I bet if we had a different weekend organized, we might have not made it through it. You know.
Yeah.
It's weird how like I kind of never cared about her character.
Really, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
I want to see it because
and it's excellent. I mean, they get you there at the end, but it was a lot of work.
Did you know the podcast, or were you going in?
I did.
No, never did. Never knew anything
I listened
about
to all of those shows. Yeah. I'm just a podcast head, so I love them.
Yeah.
No, I need to check it out. I haven't. I mean, that's one of the tough things when you're working on a show. Like it's hard. No, it's hard to. You can't keep up really. Like,
no.
Especially when I'm working on a show. Like I don't even try to keep up. I put in usually movies that I think will keep me inspired.
Right.
Yeah.
Keep me excited.
Because you got to stay in that headspace. You got to keep coming up with pictures. You got to keep. You know what I mean? It's difficult.
What movie keeps you inspired? What can you always put in?
Unforgiven.
That's perfect.
L.A. Confidential.
Sure. Yeah. So some shitty movies.
Some good.
Yeah. Is Unforgiven the best Western ever, do you think?
It's my second favorite.
Silverado.
No. Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, Sam Peckinpah.
Okay,
that's my favorite Western.
Yeah.
But Unforgiven's right up there. There's a Korean film called Memories of Murder that I really love. Miller's Crossing's probably my favorite movie.
All right.
But some of it just depends too. Like like doing the terror now. Like I've really gone on a horror.
You got to be in the horror, definitely.
Yeah, because like I mean, to me, it'd be the height of arrogance to think I could come in and, help tell a really great horror story and not be, like that. That's another thing I think I carried over from academia is just a perpetual student mentality, which I think is served me well so far. Both like when I'm on set, I'm there as a producer, but I'm also there just like learn what people's jobs are, but what they need, how things, because like you're there to like.
You're a manager. You have to. You're a leader.
And if you don't know what people need or what they want or what gets in their way, you can't really help them.
Yes. It's you have to think like a fish.
Yeah,
you have to. Right.
Totally. If you just walk in there and just like, I'm just here to feel like a big shot, or I'm here to like,
I'm gonna sit by.
Yeah.
And watch.
Then the show's the show's serving you. You're not serving the show, And so like if you go in with that student mentality, I feel like you can kind of, keep deepening your skill set and your perspective.
So you guys got to check out Tony Tost's work. It's fantastic. Longmire is great. I mean, I can't wait to see the new Terror season. It's going to be so much more fun now to watch it and just watch it with you. I'm so looking forward to it.
And Damnation coming on Netflix soon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, I think if there's if people give Damnation a chance, I think maybe it'll keep hopefully by episode 2 or 3.
All right.
Maybe the pilot. Who knows? I don't want to be presumptuous.
When's it out on Netflix?
November 7th, Wednesday.
That's in America. It's already out.
It's already out globally.
What a great thing Netflix is too, because not only a second life, but maybe even a bigger life. A lot of times.
No, absolutely. I think, and because I think it's a co-production, I don't think we have. Like, some shows, like their license deal runs up, and then they just kind of disappear or whatever, or some shows get forgotten because they're not accessed on streaming. And so, so I think, like, that's one thing I'm excited. I love, like, finding hidden gems and stuff. And you always want to write, like, a big hit show. But you don't have a big hit show.
Speaking of that, I know you're down with Godless.
Godless?
Yeah.
No, because, I mean, I haven't.
Okay, I got to know what you think about that when you watch it.
Yeah, I haven't seen, because of I mean, that's part of the.
You got to watch that one
because it is so
it's brilliant.
It is so close to. It's the same reason I didn't watch Preacher.
Okay.
Because I didn't.
You don't want to be influenced by it.
I didn't want. Yeah, I didn't want to accidentally internalize. Like
Understood.
If I'm going to steal shit, I'm going to steal from the 60s and 70s. Maybe there's a little. Then it could be an homage.
Right. And I'm Hilliard Guest. You guys can check me out. Screenwriters Rant Room, January 16th. You guys can check out Deadly Class dropping, and I got 2 big projects coming very, very soon. Can't talk about them, but it's about to drop.
That's always kind of it. You want to.
I'm like, I want to tell you guys,
people, but you're just like, I can't. Yeah. No, totally.
Yeah.
It's fun talking about this shit.
Thank you. See, it wasn't bad, was it? We just having a conversation.
No, you guys were gentle, sweet. Nice.
And you can find me, Hilliard Guest, on Twitter, and Screenwriters are on Twitter.
Yeah. Pete A. Turner on Twitter, and then you're Tony Tost, right?
Toast.
I
always want to say
I know. Well, I'm a big dummy. You know,
Tony
Toast.
It was Toast to Vershnik several generations ago.
So it was something else.
It was, but now
Tony Toast.
Tony Toast, which kind of sounds a little bit like a superhero.
And are you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter at TonyTost.
Awesome.
Tony Toast.
Tony Toast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good. We'll be doing that then.
All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.